I was impressed that you were like doing phone calls on your drive up the shore.
Let's be clear, I was not driving.
Well, no, I'm not
Yeah.
saying
My
that. but-
chauffeur was driving and I was in the passenger seat.
I thought that was just brilliant. I should drive with my husband, Marais. All right, your turn. Get some stuff done.
There,
Nice.
you know,
Has
I
to be-
also have to put up with his driving habits. And I much prefer being in
Okay, we're
control.
going live.
There's the right one. Oh, all right.
We're live.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Cook County Board of Commissioners regular meeting today, Tuesday, October 25th. And if we'd all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So as we begin today, the first thing we want to do is see if there are any adjustments to the agenda. Any adjustments?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Spallison. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, this is an opportunity now. We have our public comment period for members of the public to address the county board on any matters of county concern. Are there any individuals that would like to speak this morning?
Madam Chair, I got an email just a few minutes ago from Stephen Ollie. That's the Arrowhead Trail Subordinate Service District. And someone up there had an accident, Matt Strodel. He said he tested out the need for an emergency service vehicle on October 14, fell, broke his femur, called Sheriff's Department, enlisted the ambulance service. Needless to say, they found out firsthand how important it is to repair that road and how dangerous it is in its current estate, especially in the case of an emergency. And please share this with the Board of Commissioners. So.
All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Administrator Yorkie, any public comment that you received through email?
I've received none.
All right, other
Thank you.
commissioners?
Negative.
All right. With that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Is there an item that any commissioner would like to pull? Any items to pull? All right, if not, I'd entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as a whole.
Thank you, Commissioner Swallowson. Is there support? Support. Thank you much, Commissioner Storley. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So now we're on to MIS, and I see that Director Rowan Watkins is here. Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you. So, today we have a request to spend budgeted funds out of our capital for the purchase of a replacement server. The county owns 8 servers, and we have them on a 5-year replacement schedule. And this one is up for replacement. Typically, this is something we would do at the beginning of the year, but we've been working to actually consolidate and eliminate the total number of servers that we have, or reduce rather. And this is part of that process. So this server that we're replacing is our, it hosts our backup DNS and the backup law enforcement center data, but we'll also be moving our web map and property inquiry data onto it. So a little bit of consolidation, progress towards bringing down that total number of servers that we need to have here in the building and replace and maintain. And yeah, the total amount is $5,594.48.
All right. Any questions that we have for Rowan?
Madam Chair. Thank you, Rowan. Do you have a number in mind for how far we can consolidate? I don't think we want to go under 3.
Oh,
We'd like to be able to, probably 4 or 3, but we'd like to be able to have enough capacity if you had some sort of mechanical failure
yeah.
on one of these, which is a host, which holds multiple virtual servers to enough space to move everything over and stay operational.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just for the public, could you share what DNS stands for?
Yes, it's domain name server. So it just integrates with how we assign permissions to everybody inside the organization.
All right, thank you. Good information. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Mills?
Thank you for your efforts in consolidating. That's a very prudent approach for taxpayer dollars, and just really appreciate your work and focus on making us as efficient as possible.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Not, I'd entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll motion to approve the purchase of a replacement server using the budgeted MIS capital funds.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Swallison. Is there support? Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your work. And now we move on to item 5, Attorney Hicken.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting to come up so quick, so I was in my email. One moment. Well, Marais is here, and Madam Chair, if we could invite her up to the microphone and she can help me to explain this issue. What we're talking about is proposed amendments to a loan agreement between the EDA and Cook County related to bonds issued for improvements to the golf course in Lutzen. Because construction of the improvements was delayed, originally contemplated to finish in 2016, and actually completed in 2018. There are a couple of terms in the agreement that are not consistent with reality. So there are 2 parts of Section 12 of the agreement that the EDA is requesting that we amend so that they can be compliant with the agreement. And Ms. Somnus can comment on further, motivation that they have. But the one section relates to hiring of a consultant. The intent behind this term, this condition, was that the golf course with new improvements be operational for a period of time prior to a consultant examining the property, marketing, operation of the golf course, and reporting back. So that because construction was delayed by 2 years, they are asking to delay the consultant's review of the property of the golf course, management, operation, et cetera. And the other piece is, I think, the golf course tour, let me bring up, which was also delayed. As I understand it, that tour did occur in August. The EDA was looking to delay it until October at least, because August is a really busy time for the golf course. That's my understanding. So looking at the legal implications of these 2 changes, they are not significant. Essentially, if we didn't change the agreement, then the county could allege that the EDA was in breach of the agreement because the tour hasn't been done, the consultant would be delayed, et cetera. I don't really see the point of alleging their breach, and losing that claim to me is not a significant legal implication. I think that it is best that our agreements reflect reality, and I don't have any evidence that the EDA is trying to delay things for some inappropriate purpose.
Thank you. Administrator Young.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to note that on, I believe it was August 3rd, Auditor Powers and I did tour the golf course and looked at the condition of all the greens and the fairways and also looked at the equipment shed. So they did actually schedule that tour, just for the record.
Yeah.
Just one further comment before I invite Mr. Powers and Ms. Somnus to add more. This request to the county to have this amendment done has been pending for a long time. It's only before the board today, because that's when it floated to the top of my workload, and it floated to the top of Brady's workload at least a couple months ago, but then it required to float to the top of my workload. So I just wanted to comment that any delay, the EDA, I think, made the decision to request these amendments late last year. And the fact that it's here in October is totally my fault, and due to things not under the EDA's control.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Powers, do you want to comment?
Just that the delay was due to construction, but there were other issues too. For example, as soon as it got going, there was that terrible rainstorm in the fall. They had almost unplayable greens, and it didn't make sense. The intent of that was that it's 100%. It's operational so that a consultant can come in and have some history of normal operations. So, and I think there was another that Mary probably remembers. There were two things that happened even after the completion that said, it's not complete. There's nothing there for a consultant to say other than finish it.
Thank you for coming this morning, Mary.
Thank you, good morning. And since we started, EDA Executive Director Beth Drost has arrived. If you want Beth to come in case she can answer questions on behalf of the EDA. I am here today as a contract consultant for Superior National at the request of Scott Harrison, who's not available to be here. So I'm representing the golf course, not the EDA. Beth would represent the EDA if you want to have direct questions for them. Yeah, what happened with the delay of this hiring of this consultant to do the recommendations around capital expenditures was, first of all, construction wasn't completed in 2016 as it was anticipated when this document was written. Construction was completed in 2018. Then that winter we had an inch of rain in December, and the rain froze into a thick sheet of ice over the new baby grass, and the grass couldn't get any oxygen under the ice, and they had to reseed so much of the golf course that spring. So we had a delay in opening, and I don't know very much about agronomy, but I've learned enough to know that that tender grass. And then after they reseeded, we had a late frost, and they had to do it again. It just was like the perfect storm. It was horrible. And then the other thing that happened was COVID. And of course, COVID disrupted the way everybody did business for a while there. So we are, the management team and the Board of Governors is asking the county to amend these dates and give us the opportunity to, just as Attorney Hickens said, we want to be in compliance. We want to be doing, we work real hard at following everything in these agreements. They're very complicated, but I spend a lot of time with them and help ensure that we are on course. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that, about the golf course. And yeah, actually, I did start working on this before I left the EDA, which was over a year ago. Brady and I were were communicating back and forth about it for a while, and then Molly came into the communication with us, and I totally respect and understand the workloads that you all carry here, and there's no problem about the delay, but I'm looking forward to the day that I don't have to have this on my list of things to remember to do anymore. So, happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there any questions? Well,
I don't
Commissioner
have a
Hopper.
question, but I do have a comment. So I did reach out to EDA members this weekend asking about this issue, and I understand this has been in work for over a year, and I'm not opposed to these changes. They make sense. And my concern is that I talked to current, former, new EDA board members who were clueless. And this proposal is being brought to us as the recommendation of the management team and the Board of Governors of the golf course. Our loan agreement is with the EDA. There is no record of a vote of the EDA board asking for this. And so my issue is this process. The Board of Governors, I get there's a committee that works on this, but that recommendation should go to the EDA first, and the EDA should be aware of what their responsibilities are in relation to these documents, and then make that recommendation, have those discussions at that level, forward their recommendation to us, and then we decide. I'm just concerned about this process. I think we should basically send it back to the EDA, get it on record that they've discussed it, this document, and raise their own concerns, then come back to us.
Commissioner Mills.
I appreciate that point, and I think it's a horse apiece. Because we are two separate governing boards, and we both have to agree to it. So whether or not we agree first or the EDA agrees first, I don't think is significant.
Oh, I think it is very significant,
How come?
because the EDA board is responsible for fulfilling whatever else is in this document. Let's make sure that there are no other concerns, or that level we are not the ones responsible for fulfilling that.
Right.
It's them.
Yep.
Let's make sure they understand exactly what we expect of them.
Yep. But that's
And-
what I'm saying, like, whether or not we set the expectations first, or whether they come to us with the changes, it's a horse apiece. They don't have the same resources, a la attorney and auditor, to do that proactively.
Correct.
So that's why I'm saying,
We have to work together.
Yep.
But there is a chain that we should follow. And I don't believe that the management team, which is a separate
yep,
contract, should have the authority to make this request to us before going back to the board that they are dealing with.
yeah, that's interesting and a good point. I mean, me being me, I would be comfortable if a private individual came to us with a contract amendment for these that made sense. So whether or not it's the management team, a private individual, or the EDA themselves, the important thing, I think, is to get a contract that's accurate. And then both boards will have to decide for themselves whether it's accurate and appropriate.
But if the EDA board members that I spoke to weren't even aware of this, that is concerning to me. We need to make sure.
Yeah. That'll
The
happen after
EDA
this.
The EDA has, in the past, had some bad history.
Mm-hmm.
I was really happy the last few years thinking, oh, we've gotten past that. We're really working well together.
Are we?
I think this will send it right back to saying, no, you guys really don't. We're in control. We're telling you what to do. That's not the way this should work. The EDA needs to step up and be responsible, put it on the record that they are making this request. Because there is no vote that they know.
Right.
And I get, it was a year-long thing. It took time. We have new board members that didn't even know that they were responsible for these things. This is a learning opportunity for us all. I've suggested that there may be training. We're, in January, going to have some new board members again. Let's make sure everybody's on the same page of what the responsibilities are for each board and who's responsible for making sure that it happens. So we don't have to wait 5 years in saying, oh, wait a minute, we never did any of that. And then somebody says, oh, I didn't even know we were supposed to. So,
I think it's ironic that I think the way to further our relationship and improve our relationship is to maybe how do I put this? I feel that's hypercritical. And I think to better our relationship would be to take these kinds of challenges on and educate, just like you're saying, but to say they have to do it first because that's how they learn their lesson.
that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying process.
Right.
That there's a subcommittee of that group that did not go back to that subcommittee to get to the board to get final approval first. We wouldn't do that here.
Well, this
I
isn't correct. And so, but, okay, so where's our subcommittee as the county? You know, there isn't one, so we're taking this on. EDA will have to go back to the subcommittee and the EDA board to figure, you know, to make sure everyone's on board, just like you're saying, but for us to.
Well, we kind of had our subcommittee,
Excuse
didn't
me,
we?
excuse me. For us to deny this now, I feel like is not bettering our relationship. It's just making it more difficult.
I can respect your side of that. I think in the long run of the public trust of how things are run, I think that is detrimental.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question?
Surely.
So if, I mean, as a practical matter, what is the consequence of tabling this until the EDA could take action at its November 15th meeting? If that were to occur, then this board could reconsider this issue on November 22nd. So,
I don't believe that there would be any problem or issue with that. Beth, since you're here representing the EDA, is that something that the Finance Committee could meet and talk about, and then it could be on the board agenda for next meeting?
Oh, I agree, and that would probably be the best way is subcommittee to the big board and then back to.
And then back to us.
That seems to be how, that would be the perfect process.
Okay.
And we could do that before the November meeting, for sure.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Marais?
Do we want to wait until the new board is in place?
I don't think we
I don't
want to
think you
delay
need to
it.
do that.
You know, I don't think we want to delay.
Can we talk about the difference between the new board in place and not?
I think, and this would be from my perspective, being on the EDA, that Beth has started to onboard the new board members, and there's always going to be a change, even not necessarily at the end of the year, but we've had people resign mid-year. Between COVID and many different resignations, I can see how this all occurred. You know, I was there during part of it. And so I would support putting this back on the EDA, having the Finance Committee look over it, make a recommendation to the board at their November meeting, and then come back to us. It's clean, it's, again, it goes back to process, and I think that's a really good point that you brought up, Commissioner Hawkins, following the process.
Are you making that into a motion? If you do, I'll second it.
Mary?
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. I just would like to add a point of clarification for the public who are listening, that in the process, if this goes to the EDA Finance Committee, that's fine, but there's no money involved in this request. All it is changing a date.
That's true.
I want people to understand that we're not here asking for any money. I don't want that to be in the public's narrative. Thank you.
I misspoke. Any other discussion? If not, I'll make a motion to table this until next month, following a recommendation to come forward from the EDA.
I'll support.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Commissioner Mills.
I want to make sure we're not putting our principles in the way of progress. Practically speaking, I understand the importance of process, but I'm all about getting stuff done. I want to make progress. And so I think it's ridiculous. I'm not in support of it.
Other commissioners?
Madam
Attorney.
Chair,
Yes.
I do support the idea of process. I mean, I think that we have process here on the board that we do incrementally along with all of our committees and who we represent, and if we don't have that, it comes out of maybe a feeling of, I should have done this a long time ago, and no reflection on, you know, the year or so that you needed to work at this, but I think there comes a point when we have to say due diligence needs to be done before we get it at the board. So I appreciate, you know, the process of what you've done already, and we just want to make sure that we're clear on what we're supporting.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Starley. That all makes sense to me. It's fine either way.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next month.
See you soon.
We hope. All right. Thank you all. All right, Attorney Hicken, another item, quiet title action for a snowmobile trail.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So related to this request, we have Sharon Hexen-Platzer here from the Trailbreakers Snowmobile Club. This matter is one that I've brought before the board before in an informational way. So you have some background. There's a trail, a snowmobile trail, which is state funded through the county, which is maintained by the Lutzen Trailbreakers Snowmobile Club. And they work diligently to keep it open, to keep property owners apprised, and to seek permission, you know, on a periodic basis through a permission form for that trail. But there is an underlying property interest in the easement, which allows the snowmobile trail to access across some property owned by Mr. and Mrs. Feedy. Mr. and Mrs. Feedy do not agree as to they don't agree that there's a legitimate easement across their land. I understand that now they've put up gates on their property line across the snowmobile trail. The Trailbreakers have been trying to resolve this issue for many months. They brought the county in to assist through Courtney Bernier in the Auditor's office, who's also put lots of work into this. At this point, and I've had a conversation with Mr. Feedy, I've had a conversation with his title company, and I finally reached out to Tyson Smith and asked him for an opinion of the property interests involved. At this point, we are heading into the snowmobiling season. There needs to be maintenance done on that trail for safety, and obviously, especially because this trail connects the main trail with businesses in Lutzen, which where you can buy gas, food, water, get assistance if somebody's injured. We need to resolve this issue in a timely manner. The county has an interest. So this is an interesting issue because what I'm asking the board to do today is to authorize some county funds. There are a couple different pots it could come from, and Brady can comment on that, to move forward with a lawsuit to resolve the property issues involved. I am hopeful that that lawsuit will be, will not be too much delayed. And I'm asking that we hire Tyson Smith to move forward with the lawsuit, because I have a big jury trial coming up and I don't have time to learn this area of law. I've never brought a quiet title action, and he does it all the time. He's already reviewed all the documents and given us an opinion. He will ask for some emergency relief from the court, including asking the property owner to either remove or keep open those gates. And then he will ask the court to determine what the property interests are. I think that the Snowmobile Club has a good argument as to a prescriptive easement, even if a written easement is not valid. And so, how else do I put this? If the county's interest is a contractual interest with the state, we signed a contract, we sign these contracts frequently to accept state monies, which then go to maintain the trails in Cook County. As part of that agreement, we agree to establish and maintain the legal property interests underlying the trail. We did that. There was an easement filed back in the 90s, which is now contested by Mr. Feedy, in which we did that, but that easement is not sufficient to satisfy the property owner. Now we have to kind of defend the property interest underlying the trail. That's part of our contractual obligation with the state of Minnesota. Obviously, it also benefits residents and visitors to Cook County economy to have public snowmobile trails in the county. So I think it's a good balance, and that we have good reason to expend these funds. $5,000 retainer is what Smith Law has requested. They would charge us the township fee, which is really, it's $112 an hour, which for an attorney is pretty reasonable, I think. And I really trust that Tyson Smith has an excellent grasp of property issues in Cook County and a lot of experience, and could do us well. Now, if litigation is ongoing so that we get to the top of that $5,000, I would be coming back to the board to discuss what to do then. So this would be up to $5,000. In my budget, I have a professional services budget, which I typically would use for outside counsel. It's pretty limited though, and we just have $3,000 left for 2022. So I was going to ask that the balance of that comes out of the general fund. Brady, I did know that there were these recreation funds to be used too.
We have a portion of our state in lieu of tax that goes towards parks and recreation. And we had been using that up for a number of years, so it wasn't available. But in the last few years now, that fund is building. It's just a little over 100,000, so it's an easy fit from there.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. So to me, it makes a lot of sense to pay it out of the recreation fund. Sounds like there's more than sufficient funds in there. I had asked Ms. Hexen-Platzer if the club could contribute anything. I think their funds are really limited, and it might, and that's what she's told me. And it seems to me that we have the funding through the recreation fund to do this, and the county board can certainly ask the club to contribute something. But any questions?
I have no questions. Any remarks that you as president of the Snowmobile Club would like to share?
Remarks, yes. I just so appreciate that you understand. We have tried, I guess Mr. Feedy bought the property in October of 2020 and then contacted me as former president, secretary. I think I've held every position on the board that they have, asking whether or not there was a trail through, or permission for trail through his property. I thought that was rather odd since he purchased it a couple months before. And he said he had no information about that. And he bought a couple of parcels. And so I explained what I knew and then sent him a copy, as we always do, the minute we know that, or as soon as we know that there has been an exchange of properties held. And he didn't want to sign it. Instead, he decided either an easement, either a lease or a renting. But if it was renting, then he'd have to pay insurance, and I assured him that as a grant and aids club, we have to carry liability. And so when he didn't want to do that, then he had some other things going on. I think that Molly alluded to conversations with him. So that conversation started in January. I immediately started copying Courtney, who is our liaison with the county. And I know that both she and Brady will attest to the fact that we've been always on our best to make sure that we either have land use permits, which are year to year or owner to owner, let's say, or permanent easements. And that particular segment is the one that appears there should be that permanent easement, but just to be safe, we wanted to do at least the land use, and then that didn't happen. That trail has been there, and we have documents showing the trail from the state trail down to Lutzen since the 70s. The latest one I have is 74, although remember it's hand-drawn then, and how accurate that was until we had GPS is another story. But anyway, yes, we found out, because we do accept grant and aid funds or GIA funding, we have certain restrictions. As a club, we can't rent or lease or buy. So that's why we get the land use permits. That just gives you background, and we are willing to do whatever we can financially, but as also Ms. Higgins did refer to, we are limited because our monies do go for paying our insurances, paying for the groomer upkeep, the fuel, and when we even have done maintenance, most of ours are paid a limited amount, or they donate their time to keep it open. We make nothing from this. This is for our residents and our visitors. And as we've heard numerous times from people coming from all over, that we have some of the most beautiful trails, safe trails. And that's, I guess, always been our position, or at least mine, as long as I've been on the board. If you have questions, I hope to be able to answer them.
Thank you so much for that explanation and that history. That's very helpful. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner
Thank you,
Storley.
Madam Chair. Well, it's too bad that the Feedees decided that they had lived there a while and didn't like what they saw happening in the winter and came forth, and now they're protesting this easement, and I don't know, I think we'll do the best we can on the behalf of the county. I don't know if we'll ever make them happy, but, you know, when you come into Cook County and buy land, there's all kinds of things that go on with, surveying and your lines for your property and all, and it's unfortunate that, that wasn't part of the understanding in buying that property. This is what's going to happen there, too.
Other questions or comments?
I'm just
Commissioner
curious, in the board packet, you mentioned that they're demanding payment for trail access. How much are they demanding?
Was it $500 a year?
Well, he wanted $500 a year and then said, well, you didn't pay me for last year either.
Just curious.
So,
But
yeah,
you
and
can't
we-
rent land anyway, so
And
that
and
doesn't
it's,
work.
a precedent is, we don't want to go down that slippery slope. Thank you.
And I think it's pretty obvious. We've all known that trail's been there for years and used it for years. I can't believe you buy Yeah, can't believe you'd buy a piece of property and not see that there was a trail.
Well,
There was.
It's on the maps.
It's
and I
on the
know-
maps.
Yeah.
And he was using the property for hunting, so he said, you know, well, if that's all he wanted that property for. So he said, well, would that, you know, disrupt his deer hunting? Well, we certainly start December 1st with snowmobiling and end April 1st. We clear once through there. Clear, whatever, for safety, which obviously are not affecting that. Well, did that answer your question? Okay.
Commissioner Mills.
We have any idea, a guesstimate, estimate on our success, odds of success here?
Very high.
Okay, thank you. I assumed so, but I just,
I mean, again, I am not a real estate attorney, but I have a lot of trust in Tyson Smith,
Yeah.
and he has a high level of confidence
Yeah.
in this prescriptive easement. I mean, any person purchasing property would probably look at an aerial view of the property they're going to buy, and it's very obvious that there's a trail cutting through this land. And it's been there for decades. So I think that there's a prescriptive easement there. In order to, you know, enforce that easement, we really need a court order. In order to enforce a prescriptive easement, when the property owner is denying that it exists, that's what we need. We need a court order that recognizes it. Once, my understanding is with a quiet title action, once the judge makes a decision, if they were to recognize the prescriptive easement, a judgment or an order comes down, and that one is filed with the recorder's office, and then it becomes your evidence of an easement, and nobody gets to fight over it anymore.
Commissioner Spallison.
I would make a motion to authorize the financial support of a lawsuit against property owner Feedy to resolve the property issues underlying the state aid-funded snowmobile trail inlets.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Spallison. Is there support? Support. Thank you so much, Commissioner Storley. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Commissioner Mills.
it may not be completely appropriate, but my only other thought was that I'm not aware of the Parks and Trails Commission being involved in this. I'll certainly report back to them. But just, you know, I think it's important to keep that board in the loop. Granted, don't have a exclusive director at this point, so there's, you know, there's that aspect as well. But I think it's an excellent opportunity for an exclusive director to help navigate. But we'll see. We'll see how that moves forward.
All right, good point. Other comments? Other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Newton. Auditor Powers, item 6.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the third quarter of 2019, 2022 General Fund Budget Review. And being the third quarter, you would expect something in the neighborhood of 75% revenue, 75% expense, and levy effect. Our actual results to date are revenue at 87%, expenses 69%, just a little below expected, and so the levy effect is low at 52%. The main reason for that revenue, of course, is our federal payment in lieu that comes early in the year, so that'll catch up. A few of the highlights, let's say in Department 41, General Finance Administration, the expenses are significantly higher than expected, and that was the generally the Coleman case, the non-wage part of that settlement that got paid in 2022. All of our insurance is paid in January up front. And we had, in the revenue side, we had an unexpected work comp bonus of $84,000 this year from MCAT. We always expect a refund because they charge high and they refund. and that's been a standard for as long as I've been here. So we expect that one. This was unusual. This just had to do with overall some reinsurance rates and the results, and this is all across the state, it's not just us. So they're making this large refund. There's no information on how it breaks out. So it was put here in the general fund. Data processing, they had unexpectedly or higher than budgeted reimbursement from PHHS, probably replacing computers, et cetera. They had an unbudgeted grant for GIS, $6,600. In the administrator's office, I think I reported this before, that was that funding reimbursement from the hospital shared PIO position that just came. Just dropping down to sheriff, the revenues are very high. That's their annual police amortization aid, which was received in September, $122,000. The environmental health revenues are very high. The septic grant with Lake County, that one watershed grant, is the cause of most of that, and septic permits exceeding the budget. I'll just leave it at that and ask if there are any other questions.
Any other questions from commissioners? Not, I'd entertain a motion to accept.
We had a question.
Well, and just a
Sorry.
comment.
Okay.
I just want to publicly thank Brady. He gave me more detail yesterday about how these numbers are made up, and I think looking at our 52% overall levy, looking at the detail, gives you a better idea of where maybe revenues have been under budgeted, if it was sometimes caused by a one-time grant, or maybe consistently under budgeting revenues. And so Brady has all that if you're curious. So, but it just shows we have some room in our budget to, when we're thinking about our levy increase in December. So with that, I'll make the motion to approve the third quarter report.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Hawkins. We have a motion. Is there support? Thank you so much, Commissioner Sauls. And we have a motion and support. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, collateral for the revolving loan fund.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So this came to the board last July. You approved the loan for the FERS, Yeti Electric, for $75,000. And at that time, we approved collateral of a piece of land, not the one they're living on, but another one that they just were purchasing, as well as a piece of equipment, a Kubota excavator, just over $50,000, and then the personal guarantees, of course. Since that time, we're getting ready to finalize this. They didn't need the money immediately. They had some reservations about the UCC financing of that equipment because it's a key piece, and they wanted the freedom to sell it, to upgrade, et cetera, and not have to go through the, you'd have to change the UCCs and get approvals, et cetera. Understandable. I said, yeah, we'll take it back to the committee and talk about it. The committee agreed. The loan was predicated on that we had good access to that property, and that it didn't have any liens on it. Now, we've had assurances on all of that through North Shore Title and our own research. So the property is solid. It has nothing on it. The value of that now is about $118,000. So good value to cover that. And also, this is actually more collateral than we typically ask for. Typically, it'd be the land or the equipment, personal guarantees. In this case, because they hadn't finalized the purchase, the committee just took everything. They agreed to it. We could have made it subject to, we need the UCC. If they don't finalize, we didn't ask, we didn't do that. But, so it made sense. So that's the request, to just release that portion and keep the land in personal guarantee.
Any questions or discussions for Auditor Powers? Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Auditor Powers. And perhaps I just missed it, but for my benefit as well as the public's, what does UCC stand for?
Uniform Commercial Code. It's a state method of collateralizing, and putting a lien on equipment. So.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Mills?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to remove the UCC and the Kubota excavator.
I'd say make the requirement to have a UCC on the excavator. We don't have one right now, so.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Discussion, Commissioner Mills?
I was just going to say, I'll amend that motion to, for Brady's recommendation.
All right. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, on to item C, which is the canvas board for our general election. 2 weeks from
Thank
today
you.
is the
Yeah.
big election day.
So election day, November 8th. We can have, for a general election, it's between the 3rd and the 10th day after the election. We like to have it as soon as we can. The state likes us to have it as soon as they can because they have their own canvas of our canvases. In this case, the earliest day is the Veterans Day. So the next earliest day would be Monday, the 14th. So that would be the plan. If you accept that, 11 a.m. would be our intention to hold that meeting. And then ask if the board would like to name any designees. You cannot, none of you can serve on it since you're all on the ballot this year, but you could name a designee. And,
Well,
I'm
there's someone
sorry.
not on the ballot.
Oh,
I'd be happy
shoot.
to. I'd be happy to.
Okay. I guess I didn't, that went right by me.
I'm
I can't
easily
believe,
overlooked.
I can't believe you're leaving. Okay, thank you.
All right,
Yeah, so I guess I'd ask for a motion to
all right. So
cement that.
is there a motion?
I'll move to appoint Commissioner Swallison to the canvas board for election that will be held on November 14th at 11 a.m., yes.
And I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much, Commissioner Spallison.
Of course.
And the last item, I guess, could have just been on a consent agenda, but in case you had questions or concerns, this is the annual request from North Shore Management Plan for a local match, $2,500, which is what they generally ask for. So, and their letter was attached, so.
Questions? Commissioner
I have a
Hoffman?
question. Commissioner Swallison, you serve on that, correct?
Yes, I do.
I was looking on their website saying, oh, I wonder what they're doing. So can you give us an update maybe of what's happening with that?
Yeah, a lot of the work that's been done this year has been in the research and the updating because of the new technologies available for the erosion science behind, on the, along the North Shore here on Lake Superior. And the intent of that is when it's done, then we will be looking at that to see if our current ordinances for standoffs across, the Lake Superior area is appropriate. And right now, we just have a set value across, all those parcels that go there. And is that appropriate, right? I mean, for some areas, we see more erosion and faster rates based on the topography, based on the geology, based on all the things that are there. By updating all of this and having that mapped out and having that available. And by the way, it's available now if you go to the North Shore Management Board website, you can then follow that through and see what's currently there and the updated information that's going on in that. We do have a technical review board that is made up of both Lake County and Cook County land, services folks that are supporting that effort as well, and then people from the University of Minnesota Duluth that are actively involved in performing those services. So all of those things coming together. We look at many other things that kind of come up along the way and try to collaborate and coordinate with the North Shore Scenic Drive and other areas throughout, that affect the shoreline areas and that type of thing as well. So it's not simply the one thing, although it's a big deal. There's many other activities which, without a little something in front of me, I won't represent appropriately, probably.
Well, no, I just appreciate, and especially I think for the public to
Yeah.
understand why we think it's important to give tax dollars to that. So
Sure.
I do appreciate you giving us an update.
Yep.
Other questions or discussion? Commissioner Mills?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to pay the North Shore Management Plan annual local match of $2,500.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
I'll support.
Thank you, Commissioner Solis, and we have a motion and support. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing or seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Cruising along, Administrator York.
We are cruising along. So I've got a couple of key items today to update you on. The first concerns our compensation study, which, as you know, we've been working on over a period of months. We have gotten back from our consultant, David Drown Associates, the information from our comparable counties, which basically showed that we are below market, unsurprisingly. Currently, our benchmark minimum, that is starting pay for across all our grades, is about 84% of market. And our maximums are about 80% of market. And so basically, we're the comparable counties that we selected are kind of, going up from starting grades to higher grades. Up here, we're kind of down below that. And so what we're needing to do is shift the pay scales up. The other thing I want to note is there are some specific positions that are more below market than others. And so there are a couple things that we need to do. One is to kind of bump the whole pay table up by some degree, and by what degree is the decision of this board, of course. What I'm doing now is working on some scenarios to assess levy impact. And I haven't gotten those numbers yet. I hope to do that in the next day or two. And so to know, if we stay with our current pay scale, what would our payroll be on January 1st, 2023? And then look at what the consultant has proposed and quantify the levy impact of that. And then look at some other scenarios. There are going to be some questions about how we implement this in terms of, for example, people who are topped out on their grade. Do we treat everybody the same way and just put them into the top grade of the new pay scale? Or do we put them into the next highest pay level within their grade, which might actually be a lower grade on the new table? And stop me if anything I'm saying doesn't make sense, because it's likely that will happen. The other thing that we wanted to do was to expand the number of grades in the lower part of the pay scale, because currently the upper grades have 9 steps and the lower grades have 7 steps. What we've been doing over the last year or two to be competitive and attract employees to Cook County is to start people higher on the steps. Mm-hmm. And so the effect of that is that they get to the top step sooner, which means that they've basically maxed out on what they can earn. Of course, they do get COLA, but basically what that does is it kind of creates a disincentive for people to stick around. Because if they know that they're not going to be getting additional steps over time, they start looking around for better paying jobs. And so there are a couple things that we want to do by changing our pay table. One is obviously to pay our employees a fair competitive wage, but also to have a structure that allows us to retain people over time. Because it's enormously expensive to have a lot of turnover, because it means that you're having to bring new people in, train them up, and that's inefficient, and it costs money and time. And so improving retention in a very turbulent job market is something that we're trying to accomplish with this new pay table. So our next steps are I'm going to get these cost scenarios together and then share them with the working group, and then we're going to have an all-staff meeting to share this information with staff. And get feedback before finalizing the working group's recommendation to this board. And you'll be asked to take action on that. I'm not sure exactly when that'll be. We're going to have the all-staff meetings hopefully around November 10th and 11th. And so it would be at some point after that the working group would finalize its recommendation. So it might be early December before the recommendation comes to this board. The other thing to note is, we do have some contingency in the budget for making some adjustments next year, but the question will be, what is the total dollar impact? And then how do we phase that in? Is it something, it may not be that we can do it in one fell swoop. So we might have to phase it in, and that's another implementation strategy question that we'll all have to consider. So feeling good about where we are, and I will say that in the consultant's presentation to our working group last week, there was consensus about kind of the direction that we're going in. So I'm encouraged by that. And again, we've had really good participation from the working group members. Everybody's been really active in providing feedback. And for the public who may not have listened to earlier discussions about this, the working group is an internal team consisting of representatives from all three of our bargaining units, the supervisors group, department directors, myself and HR Director Leah Ekstrom are on it, and then Commissioner Mills is the board liaison to that group. So the process so far, I would say, is really solid. I think we have good buy-in from the working group, and so I'm looking forward to having our next all-staff meetings on this topic so we can get our staff's feedback, and then we'll be coming back to you after that meeting occurs. So, any questions or yes?
Thank
Sorry.
you.
I'm not the chair, so.
Madam Chair, thank you, Madam Chair, and Administrator Yorkie. I think that was an excellent summary, and I just want to again thank the working group. They're providing most excellent feedback and some really good critical thinking, and also realize that some compromises or staging may have to happen just for the practical side of things. So they get it 100%, and so I'm just really grateful for their perspectives and work on that, and your leadership as well, Administrator Yorkie, and also DDA. I think is doing a top-notch job at answering concerns of the working group and trying to, because this is none of our specialty, and so it's oftentimes above our head, above our pay grade. And so explaining things is a large part of those meetings.
Yeah. I guess the other thing to note, excuse me, we do have a plan to contract with David Drown over time to work on upgrading, or I'm sorry, to updating our job descriptions. And that's something that, we have had so much turnover and so much constant recruitment going on that Leah and Kathy Polly, our HR generalist, that's all they do, is they're posting job descriptions, they're setting up interviews, they're conducting interviews. There's really not a lot of time left over. We also have open enrollment coming up. which is a huge time consumer, not just during that 2-week period, but really for months following to get everything straightened out.
And before.
And before, correct. So, so they've got their hands full. And so we have built into next year's budget funding to get that assistance from David Drown, which, as I recall, I think it's about $10,000 a year, which is, in my mind, a bargain, considering the importance of making sure that our descriptions are updated. And considering the staff time it would take to do that work, I feel like it's just money well spent. So that's going to be happening. In the short term, I mentioned there are a couple of positions, not a couple, but several positions that are significantly below market. And so we're going to look at those individually as we're making this recommendation. Excuse me. And then over time, we'll be looking at all the other job descriptions. The information that we got from the consultant shows each position in terms of a percentage of the market average. And so we want to do this in a phased way where we're reclassifying the positions that are the most out of whack earliest, and then work our way up the table to address those positions that are closer to where they should be. So a lot of moving parts, but again, as Commissioner Mills said, we've got some really great consulting assistants, and the working group is really doing a great job. So I'm really pleased with the progress we've made, and look forward to our upcoming discussions about how to make these adjustments. So with that, I'll pause for any other questions.
I just appreciate all the hard work that everyone has done. It is no easy task, and it will be very good for us as a county to make sure that we are competitive with our neighbors and like things. Commissioner Swanson.
Well, and this did come up during all the bargaining, with each of the different groups and things. And although we could not tell them, because we didn't know what the results would be, we had confidence that the process would bear itself out to give the true value of the work that's being done. And we really encouraged the folks to keep each of those separate to make sure that, we stayed true to the purpose of what the negotiating was for, and then the pay reviews. And I think people are getting a level of insight into that now, and confidence that the things are being done and with the right process and the right intent, right, to make sure that we're compensating people adequately for the work that's being done. And with the confidence that this one was done at about a 5-year, rotational review, and that's the intent as we go forward, because that way you'll continue to keep yourself aligned. And
Yep.
Commissioner Mills.
Small comment on, thank you, Commissioner Swalson, that's all exactly how it was in the negotiations and what expectations there were. The only thing I would comment on is I think we should do it more frequently than 5 years. I think 3 years, at the AMC district meeting, we're hearing about some of the counties being like, oh yeah, we do it every 5 years, but they're also saying, what's going on? We're having a hard time recruiting and retaining. And so I think...
Well, and certainly if the data bears out, a more frequent review, then that'd be appropriate.
Yeah, we can follow, good point.
I mean, the other thing to note, of course, is since the beginning of the pandemic, things have been turned upside down.
Right.
The job market has been crazy. It's really been a job seekers market.
Yeah.
And both the public sector and the private sector have really been struggling to keep, people in chairs.
Yeah.
So it's not unique to Cook County, but we do have some unique challenges here that are reflected in the comparables that we selected, namely housing cost and rental costs. That is the single biggest obstacle we face in getting people up here. So, and that's on top of just the kind of baseline challenge of getting people hired. So a lot of work to be done, but again, I think it's been a really good process, and I'm excited about the next steps and about coming forward with a proposal that this board can consider. Good. All right. If there are no further questions on that, I'll move on to our CIP update. So our consultancy, our BPS, has finished walkthroughs of all our buildings. They are processing the information they've collected, which is very, very detailed. Our next steps are to pull all of that together and to prepare it for presentation to our residents, which we'll be doing at a couple of open house meetings that we're planning to schedule at the end of November, early December. And those open house meetings will be a chance for the public to come in, to look at the information we've gathered, to learn a little bit about the approach that we've historically used to construct and maintain our buildings, and to learn about the impacts of that approach. And to very briefly summarize that, there's kind of a history of cutting corners on projects in a way that actually adds to long-term costs. And what we're trying to move toward is using a more data, pardon me, using a more data-based approach to managing and operating our buildings. And so knowing what we have, knowing how old it is, knowing how often it has to be replaced, and having all of that information readily accessible so that it's not just in one person's head, but it's available to folks on the maintenance team and really on our IT team too. I see us migrating toward a much more integrated approach between MIS and maintenance. And that's part of a conversation that Rowan Watkins and Brian Silence and I have begun. We had a meeting earlier this week to talk about, with all this information that we're getting from the consultant, how are we going to store that information, how are we going to use it, how are we going to track it moving forward. And that's really critical to being able to use this information in a productive way. I mean, it's one thing to collect building data. That's great. We need that. But if we're not tracking it over time, if it's not readily accessible to multiple parties within the organization, then it really loses value. And so that's kind of a big piece of what we're looking at down the road, is not just collecting the data, putting together a CIP, but then also having a different approach to how we operate and maintain our buildings. So all of that is going to be part of the story that we tell in the open house meetings that we're planning for the end of November and early December. Here's what we've done to date. Here are some of the consequences of that approach to constructing and operating our buildings. And then what we'd like to move toward, what the benefits of that are going to be, using a life cycle costing approach in making decisions about upgrading and constructing new buildings. And then get information from our residents at that open house. And we've been saying for months now that the plan was to complete the CIP by the end of the year. The issue is if we try to simply adhere to that schedule, we're not going to be able to adequately integrate that public input. And that is singularly the most important part of this whole process, because we didn't do that the last time we updated the CIP, and it created some real issues. And so we're not just having these public meetings to say, hey, we had public meetings. We actually want to use the input that we get there. And so in order to do that effectively, we're going to have to push out the completion date of the CIP a couple of months into the new year. And so then what that timeline looks like moving forward is after we collect the data, collect feedback from residents toward the end of this year, we'll be planning to have another set of open house meetings in the first part of '23 to let people know, here's the feedback we gathered, here's how we considered it, and here's how it's reflected in the proposed CIP. So that it's a real sort of interactive approach to doing it. It's not just, yeah, we're going to listen to the public, but then we're going to do what we want. We actually want to integrate that feedback into the plan. And so that's going to take a little bit of time. And rather than trying to rush through to the completion of the CIP, I want to make sure that we get the public engagement piece of this right. And so that's going to require a little bit more time than we anticipated, but I think it's well worth taking that extra time to make sure that we adequately consider and use the feedback that we get from the public. So that's where we are on that. I'm very, very excited about moving to a different way of managing our buildings. I think it has potentially unlimited benefits in terms of cost savings, in terms of having higher quality facilities that are less prone to having like mechanical breakdowns, improving energy efficiency to reduce energy costs. There are just lots of benefits. And the idea of marrying our IT processes with building management and maintenance is super cool. So very excited about that and look forward to sharing more information about that as those conversations move forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I absolutely agree that we've put in the hard work to go through all of the steps and make this product a prioritized, this is what we need to do, these are the costs incurred, this is what we do. And then you can determine your timing, and it helps you with your levies, it helps you with all of these things. It's a fantastic tool when you get one and you use it. So we absolutely don't want to rush this. You want to make sure you get the feedback. You want to be able to demonstrate that, the people have had the time to review it, give you the feedback on it, because, well, let's face it, these are their buildings, right? So, that's the key piece of this. But the other thing I would tell you is, it's going to occur this next year, so I won't be on the board at the time that occurs. However, I will just tell you that the only way that a capital improvement plan is effective is if it's a living document.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be maintaining it, and you have to be, as things are coming off the list, other things will come on the list, and you'll have to go through and review and prioritize and do those things. So I really encourage you to, within the organization, some people say, well, that's just more work. Yeah, but it's key work. It's really important, because then it helps with every other thing as you're setting your budgets, as you're setting your, how much can we do on each of these different things. A periodic review, whatever you decide along the way, but I'm just so excited to have the county have this come into being to help everyone.
That's a really great point, Commissioner Swalson, and we've talked about the fact that, this is not a one and done.
No.
Like, we do the plan, and then we get to the end of 4 or 6 years, or whatever the duration of the plan is, and then it's done. We don't have to worry about capital improvements anymore. It doesn't work that way,
No.
of course. So you're exactly right. It is going to be a dynamic living document, and we'll be working on it. We'll be, making amendments to it as needed to make sure that it stays a viable plan for our operations moving forward.
Good.
Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Administrator Yorkie. It sounds awesome, and completely understand not getting it done by the end of the year, so I hope there's no undue stress there or, perceived expectations.
Well, our consultant was a little stressed out, and I assured him, we would rather take the time
Yes, yeah.
to listen to people
Yeah,
than to just try to rush through to meet an arbitrary deadline, basically.
yeah, perfect. And thank you, Commissioner Swalson, for your perspective on that. You have many years of experience to contribute, and I would just beg that after you're off the board, that you'd still participate in some of these discussions.
Be very interested.
Yeah. But I understand you may not be able to be there all the time or whatever, but just really value your perspective moving forward as well.
Thank you.
So those are the two big things. There are always lots of little things floating around. I will say I'm following up with Attorney Hicken and with the folks from Caribou Lake on next steps regarding the wake boat ordinance. We've been looking at statute regarding counties' roles in setting surface water ordinances. And there are lots of nuances to that, which we're working through. But it's frankly really interesting work. Lake Minnetonka Property Owners Association, they have established an ordinance regarding wakes close to shore, but they have not instituted an outright prohibition of wake boats on that lake. I believe there are no other counties in the state that have an outright prohibition of wake boats on any of their lakes. So this is kind of new ground. And so again, we are kind of looking at what is feasible and what we can do to best serve the interests of the residents who have come forward. So more to come on that. And like I said, lots of other littler issues kind of always bubbling up. But between the comp study and the CIP update, I feel like those are taking the majority of my time right now, and I'm happy to be spending my time that way because those are really important. So that's what I got.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you again, Administrator Yorkie. I hope, if it's appropriate, that Soil and Water can contribute to that discussion, and also, maybe we could just have it be like, the boats aren't allowed 600 feet from shore, which I think, according to the presentation, is all of the lake. So if that kind of technicality.
That's one way to deal with it.
Right. Just my 2 cents there.
All right, any other comments or questions for Administrator Yorkie? If not, let's move on to Commissioner concerns and updates. Anything to share? All right, I have a couple of things. First of all, I have some information to share from Karen Christensen, who is our Veterans Service Officer, and she would like us to share this with the public as well. In 1954, President Eisenhower signed a bill proclaiming November 11th as Veterans Day, calling on our nation to solemnly remember the sacrifices of all those who valiantly on the seas, in the air, and on foreign shores preserve our heritage of freedom, and let us reconsecrate ourselves to the task of promoting and enduring peace, so that their efforts shall not have been in vain. In the nearly 7 decades since, millions of Americans, including residents of Cook County, have bravely taken up the call to protect and serve. And this November 11th, we will come together as a nation on Veterans Day to honor and celebrate these brave individuals who have served our country in uniform. Now, more than ever, our veterans and their families need our support. In a time when our country is divided on many issues, we can all agree that these public servants who risked everything to protect our country and our way of life deserve our support and gratitude. And that's why this year I'm recommending and requesting that Cook County join the National Association of Counties, NACO, and the National Association of County Veterans Service Officers in launching Operation Greenlight for Veterans, an initiative designed to shine a light on the service of our veterans. As part of Operation Greenlight for Veterans, we would illuminate the courthouse building beginning on November 7th to remind veterans and their families throughout the week in our community that we are here for them. We'd encourage individuals and businesses to join us by changing one light bulb in the entry of your home or business to a green bulb. By shining a green light, Cook County would let our veterans know they are seen, appreciated, and supported. Operation Greenlight is also an opportunity to raise awareness of the resources available to veterans and their families, and here in Cook County we proudly serve approximately 390 veterans through the Veterans Service Office. Veterans and family members can learn about more available services at the Cook County Veterans Service Office. So this is something that Karen has shared with us and wanted us to share with our community. I can also say, as those of you who attended our recent AMC district meeting, that this was something that AMC was supporting as well. And thinking of AMC,
Madam Chair, if I could just interject, at the November 8th meeting, the board will be asked to approve a proclamation for Veterans Day, so.
absolutely, good point. All right, well, at AMC, we recently met, and we met up in Grand Portage this year. We have an opportunity to host our District 1 meeting on occasion. And when we were in Grand Portage, Tribal Elder John Moran provided a guided tour to 16 AMC staff and commissioners from other counties to the Spirit Little Cedar Tree. And following that tour, we hosted a reception for commissioners and staff. And it was a great time to just discuss issues and concerns and different kinds of needs throughout the Northland. On Thursday morning, we gave county updates on a few specific topics, but clearly the very best part of Thursday, at least for me, was some information that AMC shared with all the commissioners. They shared that the United States Treasury Department is releasing $1.5 billion over 2 fiscal years, and doing that math, $750 million each year, to eligible counties and tribal governments. And this Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund uses a formula to identify which counties and tribes qualify. And they used measurements of poverty rates, household income, land values, and unemployment, as well as other economic indicators over a 20-year period, which ended in September of 2021. And the good news is, for all of us sitting here, but for our entire community, that Cook County qualifies. We will receive $1,019,951.31 each year, 2022 and 2023, for our budgets. And we can use these dollars for programs, services, and capital expenditures that typically fulfill a governmental purpose. And we need to request that funding by January 31st of 2023, Auditor Powers. So we'll anticipate that's going to get done. And thinking that we just talked about capital improvement in our county, these dollars are a great way to move forward with our capital improvements and not have to put burden on our taxpayers. So really good news for all of us. Excited to share that.
Madam Chair. Thank you. We had a discussion at our Arrowhead County meeting, and of all that money, is that to be shared with tribe?
The tribes have their own separate funds.
Okay.
That is
Okay.
correct.
That was the question we wondered about, so that's good.
Yep, absolutely. Any other questions about that, or any other good news people would like to share?
Can't top that.
Yep, I don't think we can.
Yeah, good
Commissioner
news.
Hawkins.
ARC meeting on Friday, they announced their insurance rates went down from budgeted, so they're gonna have $100,000 savings that'll come back to the counties as far as their portion. Of course, ours is not gonna be a whole lot of that portion, but
We'll take
there's
what
more
we
good
can
news.
get, right?
That's great.
Excellent. Anything else?
Yeah.
Other? All right. Well, if not, we have meetings coming up. We have our meeting on November 8th, Election Day, at City Hall. A reminder, it won't be live streamed, but we'll be sharing the video with the public later. And then Truth and Taxation coming up on November 29th at 6 p.m. here in the Commissioners' Room. And our AMC Annual Conference, December 4th through 7th in Bloomington. And then we have a couple of pieces of correspondence, our sales tax report, lodging tax comparison, and that should be it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Not yet, Madam Chair, sorry.
I was so excited.
Just hold on to that.
2 minutes.
All right. Yeah, 2 minutes.
What? Oh.
Commissioner Hawkins was looking at that clock.
I just wanted to, I think maybe we addressed this before. I just wanted to ensure, though, because I don't clearly remember. Did we make reservations for the AMC for the new commissioner from District 1?
I need to check with April.
Okay.
on that.
I
think.
believe we made
Yeah, she had
reservations
initially
for
made
all.
one, and it came to me,
Yeah.
and I said, well, I'm not going to be using this, and then, James, you had responded saying that, yes, but we're gonna hold that reservation for the new
Yeah.
person, but you can validate that with them.
Yeah, that would be
But yes, that
wonderful.
was the
I
intention.
think that would be most excellent. And I guess maybe a little communication to both the candidates, just about those times.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, the dates, thank you, yeah. And how much you want to bet that I come here November 8th and go, dough, and then back down to city?
Well, show up early so that you're ready
To my
to
darndest
transition.
there.
And while you're here, you can vote, I guess.
Done and done, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Just also want to point out the sales tax report and the lodging tax comparison, both very telling of a lot of opportunities and challenges in our community. And I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is
I
there,
will support.
all right, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
No, no, well, no, I was just trying to, wait, what am I missing here?
Oh, that's great.
And it's good
I
to,
apologize for my phone, I always shut it off.
yeah, but
I couldn't tell.
Two then.
okay.
Right, oh my gosh.
Well, that's always what I'm afraid is gonna happen, and so